Part 43. Shock, the love letter was sent to the Empress by mistake. Author, Mozuzi. Chapter 422. When this sentence was spoken, the air seemed to stagnate for a moment. Although they had been curious for a long time, the cultivators obviously did not expect that someone would dare to ask the Empress directly in person. Wasn't he afraid of causing the Empress to be angry? Strange, why does it seem that the Empress is not angry? It seems, indeed. However, many people found something wrong at the same time. When the question was asked just now, the Empress not only did not show any sign of anger, but also a strange look flashed across her face from a distance. Ahem, this emperor has wanted to talk about this question for a long time. After coughing twice, Chu Qingyu actually felt that her heartbeat speed had accelerated. This was not the first time she had faced so many cultivators. Even though she had fought against 3 great emperors and countless sects alone, Chu Qingyu had never panicked. But at this moment, when she thought about announcing this kind of thing in person, she couldn't help but feel her cheeks slightly hot. Is this moment finally coming? Scanning her eyes over countless expectant cultivators, even though she was constantly circulating her aura and trying to calm her heart with the cool aura, Chu Qingyu still couldn't suppress her slightly reddened cheeks. She could feel her heart beating faster and faster, and she couldn't even suppress the chaotic thoughts in her heart. What I want to announce is... The trembling voice stopped abruptly, and immediately caused many cultivators to look at each other in curiosity. Even though there had been various speculations before coming to Tianyun Palace, and some sects even held a special meeting to discuss and speculate on this matter. But the scene in front of them was obviously different from what they imagined. Although it was not clear from a distance, the strange look of the Empress still made people feel that something was wrong. Some people crossed their fingers and circulated the deduction formula, while others calmed their minds and tried to speculate silently in their hearts. But even though there were so many sects and powerful cultivators present, no one could guess the real situation. Many cultivators were obviously confused, and they couldn't figure out the cause and effect. What exactly does the Empress want to announce? I don't know, but since the Empress ascended the throne, no one has ever seen the Empress show such an expression. This matter is probably enough to cause an uproar in the world. The more curious they were, the more confused they were. However, many cultivators didn't get any information at all, and even the disciples of Tianyun Hall were all confused. One by one, they could only look at the Empress, who was obviously a little different from the past today. Moreover, there were cultivators who were good at observing words and expressions and were surprised to find that the Empress's expression at this moment was no longer as cold as before. Her cheeks were like ice and snow melting. Not only did the cold and arrogant look fade a little, but there was a trace of almost invisible shyness. Oh no! Chu Qingyu also realized that it seemed that several people had noticed her slightly strange expression, and she wanted to speak frankly. But when the words came to her lips, it was still a little difficult to say. After all, he has been on the throne for so long, and even wrote a theory that Taoist companions are useless. But now he has to say that in front of all the sects in the world. Just thinking about it makes him feel ashamed. But if he doesn't say it, it has come to this situation. Her inner thoughts seemed to be struggling fiercely. Chu Qingyu pursed her lips and was so entangled that she couldn't help but clench her teeth, and was a little hesitant. But at the moment when her heart was beating like a deer, she inadvertently looked at Nai Chen, who was standing beside her. Being closest to the Empress, Nai Chen clearly saw the shy blush on her cheeks at this moment. It seems that my wife is so shy that she can't say it at all. As for how to face the current situation? If I guessed correctly, the Empress only needs a comfort. A moment later, in front of many cultivators, Nai Chen looked at Chu Qingyu. He didn't do anything, but just showed a trace of a peaceful smile. The smile was fleeting, and in the blink of an eye, Nai Chen turned his back again and stood guard in front of Chu Qingyu. But after seeing Nai Chen smile just now, Chu Qingyu felt as if her heart could not help but throb for a moment. A warm current instantly surged into her heart. Although Nai Chen did nothing, just this smile made Chu Qingyu feel extremely relieved. Whether it was the worry or sadness just now, it disappeared in the blink of an eye. Looking into the distance again, even though there were thousands of cultivators standing in front of Tianyun Hall, and each of them represented their own sect. Taking a deep breath, Chu Qingyu finally made up her mind. As a female emperor, how could I be stopped by such a small thing? At the same time, many cultivators seemed to realize something. The Empress opened her eyes. And why do I feel that the Empress temperament seems to be a little different from before? It seems so, but why did the Empress look at that disciple Nai Chen just now? Curiosity, expectation, and countless emotions made all the cultivators present completely unable to control their gazes, and they all looked at the beautiful figure deep in the hall. After all, the majesty of the Empress has long been known to all quarters, and so far, no one has ever heard of anything that could affect the Empress's character. It is enough to see how important the matter that the Empress intended to announce long before entering the imperial mausoleum was. Is it about other spiritual realms, or even, a treasure left in the fairyland? Could it be that the Empress has reached the realm of the Emperor? Or maybe the sleeping demon beast of ancient times has awakened? Guess after guess, it sounds even more alarmist. But no matter how everyone guessed, it seemed that they could not find the real answer at all. What exactly would it be? Even those cultivators who were very good at deduction were all dumbfounded, because they found that the things they wanted to deduce might even be related to the two great emperors. Such a mysterious thing was not something they could touch at all. But just when everyone could not guess at all, Chu Qingyu, who was sitting deep in the hall, finally stood up slowly. Although the gaze revealed an extremely awe-inspiring look, it also carried a hint of shyness. The second thing I want to announce is that I, and Nai Chen, have temporarily confirmed their relationship as lovers. As soon as these words came out, everyone was shocked. Shock, the love letter was sent to the Empress by mistake. Author, MaleProtagonist. Chapter 423. The less you talk, the bigger the matter becomes. The shock brought by Chu Qingyu's brief words just now was even stronger than the announcement of the Emperor's mausoleum and the underworld. When this sentence was spoken, the entire Tianyun temple seemed to fall into a dead silence in an instant. Everyone was dumbfounded. Whether it was the disciples and elders of Tianyun temple, or the cultivators of various sects in the world, even the strong men in the Saint Emperor realm and the Great Emperor realm, all showed unprecedented astonishment. How is it possible, Empress? Are you sure you are not kidding me? The Empress actually has a lover, and it's that, Nai Chen. I don't believe it, I won't believe it even if I die. After a short period of dead silence, there was a boiling uproar. After all, no one would believe what Empress Qingyu said just now. If other people had a lover and confirmed their relationship, perhaps everything would be possible. But only Empress Qingyu, no one believed it anyway. Not for anything else, there was only one reason. That's the Empress. She wrote the theory of the uselessness of Taoist companions by her own hand, and was extremely resistant to love. Even a saint emperor had a crush on her, and she almost lost her life. Almost everyone believed that the person least likely to fall in love in this world was the Empress. Over the years, the Empress's indifference seemed to have never changed, and almost all the cultivators in the world had never changed this idea. But now, many people looked at Chu Qingyu in disbelief, but they found desperately that the expression on her beautiful face was very serious, and her cold and arrogant eyes were quite firm, without any intention of joking at all. Sensing the thoughts of the cultivators, Chu Qingyu sighed and said, "This emperor did not lie to you. Nai Chen and I have already confirmed our relationship. Moreover, it was confirmed long before entering the imperial mausoleum. The reason why I have not said it is that this emperor has been struggling and I don't know how to announce it to the world. But today, my thoughts have been firm, and it is naturally impossible to hide it. So, the second thing this emperor announced is very simple, and there is no need to continue to hide it. From today, I will make public my relationship with Nai Chen. Speaking, Chu Qingyu looked at Nai Chen. There was a little guilt in her eyes because she had concealed it for a long time and didn't say it until today. But more, it was full of sweet affection. I didn't expect the Empress to say it so decisively. Nai Chen also looked over at this time. The two looked at each other, and it seemed that a lingering spark was struck in just a moment of eye contact. At the same time, she smiled knowingly, and thinking back to the fact that she was still under the gaze of many sects in the world, Chu Qingyu shyly looked away. But this shy evasion further confirmed the sweet ambiguity between the two of them. They were still a distance away from each other, and they looked away at the same time. But at this moment, even the air between Nai Chen and Chu Qingyu became as sweet as sugar, so sweet that people couldn't help but have a toothache. The air seemed to be filled with the sweetness of candy and the sour smell of lovers' love. At this moment, standing outside the Tianyun Palace, the cultivators from all over the world and all sects were all stunned. Even their eyes were a little absent-minded. In their hearts, it seemed as if there were huge waves surging, beating their young hearts. Especially some male cultivators and some women who had special feelings for the Empress, they wanted to cry directly. For so many years, the Empress has been regarded as a cold and arrogant person who is unapproachable. They have always thought that there is absolutely no lover who can match the Empress. But they never expected that this moment would come so suddenly. I don't believe it, I won't believe it even if I die. The Saint Emperor from the western regions, Burza, finally couldn't hold back the tears of a good man, and cried bitterly. I don't believe it either. This miserable cry immediately made many monks around feel heartbroken, and they couldn't help but cry directly. They had questioned it just now, and they had said that they didn't believe it at all. But the Empress's personal explanation again cruelly broke all the beautiful illusions, and told everyone this fact without mercy. The Empress really has two people, and they are Nai Chen. I can't accept it, this is totally unreasonable. That's right. The Empress clearly wrote the theory of the uselessness of Taoist companions by hand, how could she still fall in love? Crying and wailing were everywhere. Especially when they recalled the moment when the Empress and Nai Chen looked at each other, the smile from the heart and the eyes full of affection, they felt so heartbroken that they couldn't help themselves. After all, that was not only the ironclad evidence that the Empress was really in love, but also a ruthless dog abuse. If they could, they would like to treat this as a dream, but the facts clearly tell them that this has nothing to do with dreams at all. After all, just now, the Empress was still showing her affection with her eyes. The Empress is actually in love. This fact is obviously beyond doubt. Before going to Tianyun Hall, the cultivators of various sects were all curious and interested in the second thing that the Empress was about to announce. But after finally hearing it, they never thought that the Empress would announce such a thing. The Empress is in love, this kind of thing is enough to cause a sensation in the world, and it can be called the most explosive news in Lanchuan continent in decades. But no male cultivator wants to hear this news. Damn it, it must be because of Nai Chen. If it weren't for Nai Chen, the Empress would never fall in love. That's right. The Empress has been single for more than 600 years, how could she fall in love easily? It must be Nai Chen who seduced the Empress with his handsome little white face, this kind of thing must not be tolerated. Yes, he is just a disciple who has just entered Tianyun Hall for a year, and he also wants to eat the soft rice of the Empress? It's really wishful thinking, we must help the Empress wake up today and eliminate Nai Chen, this ambitious man. As if they were crying in their hearts, many cultivators have transferred all their hatred and anger to Nai Chen. Pairs of eyes are like burning flames, filled with anger, and full of tears. So many cultivators staring at each other at the same time should undoubtedly bring a strong sense of oppression. They looked at Nai Chen, who was just looking at the empress sweetly. Many cultivators suddenly realized that for some reason, facing their gazes, Nai Chen actually seemed to be fearless. You are listening to Novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. Shock, the love letter was sent to the Empress by mistake. Author, MaleProtagonist. Chapter 424. Damn it, he's so arrogant. How dare he be so arrogant? I'm going to fight him to the death. After receiving such desperate news, the cultivators present felt that their hearts had been severely hurt. Seeing Nai Chen's fearless appearance at this moment, they couldn't hold it back any longer. I don't believe you are qualified to be the Empress's lover, Nai Chen. I want to challenge you one by one. Burza from the western regions finally stood up, looking at Nai Chen with a burning anger. His body was extremely strong and sturdy, and he was 8 feet tall. His muscles were extremely strong, and even his skin was tanned to a healthy dark color. Although the aura on his body was full of anger, the oppressive feeling of the Saint Emperor realm drifted around, making many cultivators feel dreadful. There have always been few powerful cultivators in the western regions, and the cultivation methods are extremely poor. It is not easy to produce such a powerful person. Most of the monks have regional concepts, and they originally had some hostile thoughts towards the monks from the western regions. But at this moment, when Burza stood up to face Nai Chen, he aroused a boiling voice of support. Good job. I didn't expect that there would be such a passionate man in the western regions. I must defeat him for me. Yes, I want to see if Nai Chen is a coward. If not, accept the challenge and be prepared to be beaten. Come on, brother, you must teach this bastard who covets the Empress a lesson. Compared to the hostility towards the region, the hatred attracted by Nai Chen is obviously a bit greater. The monks of various sects obviously could not accept the fact that the Empress announced that Nai Chen was a couple, and they wanted to rush forward to do it themselves. After all, they hated it. Thinking of the ambiguous eyes when the Empress and Nai Chen looked at each other, the monks felt that their teeth were itching with hatred. It just so happens that all the cultivators from all the sects in the world are here today, so they must see what capital and strength Nai Chen has in front of all the cultivators in the world. No matter what, Nai Chen must know that he wants to be the Empress's lover. His little strength does not allow it at all. Brother Burza, you must help us repay him. That's right, I will pay for the medical expenses, and we must let the Empress know that the pretty boy is unreliable. Amid the cheers, Burza also walked step by step to Nai Chen. The shadow cast by the tall body was even enough to include Nai Chen. Every steady step was enough to prove that not only in terms of cultivation, but also in terms of his physique, he was extremely strong. With the strength of the sea-breaking realm and such a strong spirit, even among the Saint Emperors, Burza's strength was already extremely strong. Almost no one questioned the crushing of Nai Chen. Even Burza's gaze at Nai Chen was a bit angry, and he had obviously regarded Nai Chen as an enemy. I am Burza, and I come to challenge you. For no other reason than to prove whether you are really qualified to be the lover of the Empress. As Burza clasped his fists, the oppressive feeling of the Saint Emperor realm suddenly came from top to bottom. The tall body brought a strong visual impact. But the onlookers all saw clearly that facing the Saint Emperor from the western region, who had terrible physical and cultivation strength, Nai Chen did not show the slightest fear. He bowed casually and even used his free time to look at the Empress. When they looked at each other, when he saw Chu Qingyu nodded slightly, Nai Chen smiled and turned around. The intention expressed by my wife just now was very clear. Even if the Empress announced it herself, so many cultivators in the world would not be convinced at all. If you want them to accept the facts willingly, there is only one way: strength. Although the Lanchuan continent is complicated, it is only strength that determines everything. Since the cultivators of various sects present are not convinced, then use strength to convince them. Under the gaze of the Empress and the gaze of countless cultivators in the world, Nichiren simply raised his head calmly, and even looked at Burza provocatively. The battle between real men is not based on words. Since you think I am not worthy, then use your strength to prove whether you are qualified to judge me. In just a moment, a hint of sharpness appeared in Nichiren's eyes. When seeing this look, many cultivators who were watching, and even many sect masters, couldn't help but feel a tremor in their hearts. To be qualified to come here to participate in the Tianyun Hall conference, their strength is undoubtedly that of a drunkard. But at this moment, even many old sect masters felt the fear from the bottom of their hearts. How is it possible? Isn't this Nichiren just a fairy seedling valued by the Empress? It should be just an illusion. Perhaps this gaze is just some kind of magic used to intimidate. Gritting their teeth, the monks were obviously still unwilling to believe it and focused their attention on this battle. At this time, Burza seemed to be completely enraged. Not only did the Empress he admired admit the relationship between lovers, but this person also ignored his own strength. These actions completely aroused his anger. In this case, don't blame me for being merciless. Burza shouted angrily, and he had no intention of holding back. What he wanted was to completely defeat Nichiren in one blow, so that this arrogant boy would know how high the sky and the earth are. The dark palm like a palm leaf fan slapped down, and the huge palm seemed to have caught the strong wind between heaven and earth in the palm. His body was as still as a mountain, but in this palm, it seemed to have the majesty of a beast. This is one of the secret methods that are not passed on in the Western regions, using one's own power to evolve into a beast, and stimulate all the hidden power. When Burza's palm slapped down, his body seemed to have turned into the sturdy body of a giant bear. The spiritual power in his body kept flowing, but all gathered on the palm. With the strength of the sea-breaking realm, which is enough to rival the spiritual power of the Holy Emperor, he condensed all this power on the palm and exerted this blow to the extreme. Boom! Even the air made a sound in the tearing, and the dark palm seemed to have turned into a huge mountain that was pressing down, enough to suppress everything. For a moment, many monks could not help but stare at the delightful scene that was about to happen. But just when Burza's hand was under control, they thought they had already won. Under the gaze of countless eyes, they clearly saw that Burza's hand was suspended in mid-air, and could not move at all. Shock, the love letter was sent to the Empress by mistake. Author, Mozuzi. Chapter 425. Bang. After the dull sound, Burza's palm was frozen in the air, unable to move forward an inch. The copper bell-like eyes widened, revealing a look of astonishment. Burza, who was extremely confident and thought he could easily crush Nichiren, was nervous and trembling with his palm, and even felt great pain in his entire arm. He was shocked to find that no matter how hard he tried, his palm could not move forward at all. It was like there was a mountain in front of him that was impossible to pass through, and even his self-righteous strength was nothing but insignificant in front of this mountain. The trembling and severe pain in his arm continued to intensify, and finally, Burza's eyes could no longer conceal a trace of fear and panic. He found that his strength and that of Nichiren in front of him were actually, not on the same level. The real strength of this man was far more terrifying than he had imagined. How is it possible? What is Nichiren's strength? Isn't Burza a saint emperor from the western regions? How is it possible? I heard that he seems to have reached the sea-breaking realm. It's really terrifying that he has been promoted from practicing to becoming a saint emperor within a year. Sea-breaking realm? No, his cultivation progress is indeed frighteningly fast, but even if he has the sea-breaking realm, it is reasonable to say that he cannot have such a terrible crush on the cultivators of the same realm. What's more, Burza is from the western regions. His strange magic and strength are far beyond the reach of ordinary saint emperors. What is that? At this moment, Even the onlookers were completely dumbfounded. The scene before them had completely exceeded their cognition, and they even began to doubt whether Burza's strength was really worthy of the name. At this moment, there was a loud bang. Burza's huge body was suddenly hit by thunder, and under the powerful force, it flew backwards. Countless eyes were attracted, but they only saw it clearly. The scene just now was that Nai Chen kicked Burza's body away with a seemingly light kick like kicking a ball. The huge body fell directly to the ground, smashing the ground with cracks like spider webs. Accompanied by painful wails, this empress pursuer from the western region, who was known to have fought thousands of battles in the western region for many years and had never lost a single battle, fell to the ground without any resistance. He didn't even know how many bones were broken, but the severe pain was so severe that even his strong body couldn't resist it. How terrifying, this man's strength! The painful wails instantly woke up many people at the same time. The scene in front of him was enough to prove how terrible the strength Nai Chen had just exploded. Damn it, Nai Chen's strength has reached this point. No matter what, I don't think he is worthy of the queen. Go. The queen didn't express her opinion, maybe she acquiesced to our actions. As long as we defeat him, the queen will understand that this guy is not qualified to be compared with the queen. Burza fell to the ground miserably, but his posture aroused the fighting spirit of other Saint Emperor realm masters present. The sea-opening realm cultivators in Lanchuan continent are also extremely rare, and each of them can be called a Saint Emperor and dominate one side. But at this moment, many Saint Emperors flew out of the crowd at the same time. They came from different sects, belonged to different forces, and some even came from the demon sect. But at this moment, these Saint Emperor realm masters had only one common goal: to defeat Nai Chen. No matter what, they would never allow Nai Chen to continue to be arrogant. Humph, I don't believe you can defeat Burza. Can you easily defeat all of us? To be qualified to be the Empress's couple, it's not enough to show the strength you just showed. I want to see how long you can last under our hands. Many Saint Emperor realm masters appeared in the air at the same time, and even their eyes looking at Nai Chen seemed to be full of anger. But they soon noticed that whether facing Burza or facing them, Nai Chen's expression never showed any fear. On the contrary, at this moment, facing so many Saint Emperor realm masters attacking him, Nai Chen not only did not show fear, but also seemed to have a slight smile on his lips. Damn it, I wonder how long you will be arrogant. Let's join forces and see how he can bear it. These cultivators have never been treated with such contempt, and the anger in their hearts completely broke out. Heavenly Peak Map. Golden Wave Dharma Image. Many Saint Emperors burst out at the same time, and the light of magic weapons shone in the sky. Some practiced their skills, some summoned their own magic weapons, and some crushed down with overwhelming Dharma images. Even though they were facing only Nai Chen, these Saint Emperors who were once so proud of themselves actually attacked at the same time, and countless powerful spiritual powers crushed down, almost completely covering him. At the same time, with so many Saint Emperors joining forces, let alone the sea-opening realm, even if a great emperor came here in person, it would be difficult to deal with. Not to mention Nai Chen alone. Looking at this scene, many cultivators secretly breathed a sigh of relief, thinking that they had already won. Some even wanted to stop, not believing that Nai Chen could block this attack. If they made a mistake, they might even die. But just when they had relaxed their vigilance and thought that they would win easily, suddenly, they found that in the huge spiritual energy formed by countless forces, there was a force that was violently tearing. Obviously, the joint attack of many Saint Emperors was like a big net covering the sky and the earth, but at this moment, a tiny crack was torn on the big net. The crack was very small at first, then it became bigger, and then it began to become bigger and bigger. When the crack was about to be unable to bear it, suddenly, a magnificent spiritual energy was suppressed in all directions. Many Saint Emperors in the sky were attacked by this fierce hurricane at the same time, and their bodies were suddenly swept away. Boom! The encirclement suddenly broke apart. Amid the stunned and fearful gazes of the Saint Emperors, the majestic awe emanating from Nai-Chen made them want to submit. That is, the power of the great emperor. Nai-Chen is actually already a great emperor. Suddenly, someone made a horrified sound. Shock, the love letter was sent to the empress by mistake. Author, Mozuzi. Chapter 426. In just a moment, the surroundings of Tianyun Palace seemed to fall into deathly silence. Seeing dozens of saint emperors falling to the ground so vulnerable, the eyes of many cultivators were filled with fear. Especially when looking at Nai-Chen, their eyes began to gradually permeate with fear and astonishment. Before this, although many people knew that Nai-Chen's qualifications and talents were extremely terrifying, they could never have imagined that Nai-Chen's cultivation would be so terrifying. Saint Emperor? No, even the Saint Emperor could not burst out such a terrifying power in one blow. He is a great emperor. Suddenly, the pupils of countless cultivators shrank sharply. When those Saint Emperors were violently thrown to the ground, Nai-Chen's aura also emanated. The oppressive feeling that spread like ripples in all directions almost made everyone's heart tremble violently. Among the cultivators present, whether they were sect masters, elders of various sects, or powerful saint emperors with great reputation, all of them were trembling with fear. The terrible sense of oppression was like a surging wave sweeping down, causing their breathing to stagnate. Even a powerful emperor like Emperor Jinming could not have such a feeling. Only Empress Qingyu had the pressure of an emperor to rival her. The emperor's might was mighty and ethereal. Looking at Nai-Chen in front of them, these cultivators from all over the world all showed awe and horror on their faces. This feeling could not be faked at all. Nai-Chen's identity was that of a powerful emperor. How is it possible? I heard that he was just an abandoned child of the demon sect a year ago, and there was even great controversy when he went to Tianyun Palace and was summoned as a disciple by the empress. It's only been a year, how is it possible? I remember meeting Nai-Chen before entering the emperor's mausoleum. At that time, he had just stepped into the sea-breaking realm. Although entering the sea-breaking realm in a year is terrifying enough, it is impossible to break through to the great emperor realm after only half a month in the emperor's mausoleum. At this moment, astonishment was heard everywhere. There are countless strong people in Lanchuan continent who have reached the peak of the sea-breaking realm and may be able to break through the gap and reach the great emperor realm. These famous saint emperors have been working hard for so many years but have not been able to achieve their wishes. The many cultivators present could not imagine that Nai-Chen's breakthrough speed would be so terrifying. Is this still a human? No, it should be said that this is not a human at all. A strong sense of oppression spread in all directions. Not only was the peak of the Tianyun Palace shrouded in this powerful pressure, but even within a radius of 100 miles, countless birds and beasts felt fear from the bottom of their hearts and could not help but bow down in submission. Even though they could not believe it at all, the cultivators finally had to accept this fact. The fact that Nai-Chen had reached the realm of the great emperor could not be false. Now, do you have any doubts about the relationship between me and the empress? Sensing the changes in the eyes of tens of thousands of cultivators, Nai-Chen smiled slightly. Although this smile seemed quite kind on the surface, it made people feel a little cold. In addition to the demon emperor Xiao Yangkai, who was amazed at the fact that his new good brother was so powerful, countless cultivators present, including the great emperor Jinming, cried at the same time. They wanted to raise doubts, and even said that they could not accept such a fact even if they were beaten to death. But the problem is, you exude the oppressive feeling of the great emperor, who dares to say no. The overwhelming imperial power that surged like waves was enough to make the hearts of all the cultivators feel cold. It was difficult for them to maintain their minds, let alone dare to express their dissatisfaction in person. No wonder the empress looked at Nai-Chen differently. Breaking through to the great emperor in 1 year was unheard of even in ancient times. This Nai-Chen is a monster. Even if it is so, I don't want to accept it, damn it. How could the Empress really have a lover? It seemed as if they were crying in their hearts, but unfortunately, in the continuous sense of oppression, no one dared to say no. They were afraid that Nai Chen would just look at them casually. The strong imperial power alone was enough to make their Tao hearts collapse. There was a dead silence all around. When many people noticed that even Emperor Jinming in the crowd was trembling, they were completely relieved. Even Emperor Jinming didn't dare to say anything, so what could they say? Did he think that he didn't live long enough? A good man will not suffer a loss in front of him, so he should be patient for the time being, and wait for a chance to make this thief who tried to touch the Empress pay the price. But now, he can only be timid for now. Although they have their own thoughts in their hearts, some cultivators secretly glanced at Nai Chen, envious, jealous, and hateful to the point of itching teeth, but no one said anything. After all, if you think about it carefully, what the Empress just said was just to establish a romantic relationship with Nai Chen. Maybe Nai Chen, this bastard, just relied on his strength and talent that had just reached the realm of the great emperor to force the Empress to announce such a thing. In fact, the Empress did not fall in love with him at all. If this is really the case, then there is a chance. Thinking of this, many people felt relieved and began to think about how to rescue the Empress from the sea of suffering and eliminate Nai Chen, the traitor. I didn't expect these Taoist friends to be unexpectedly reasonable. Wife, it seems that no one will object to this. After the monks were silent for a long time, Nai Chen nodded with satisfaction and looked at Chu Qingyu. He even floated beside her in front of many monks and gently took her soft and slightly cool little hand. Wife? He's crazy. And he dared to hold the hand of the Empress. The scene in front of them made the monks' eyes pop out. For more than 600 years, they had never seen anyone dare to say frivolous words to the Empress. Except for the Saint of Flowers, no one dared to have intimate physical contact with the Empress. And the scene in front of them was completely beyond their cognition. Even if the Empress gave Nai Chen a face and reluctantly admitted the relationship of lovers, he dared to call the Empress his wife and dared to hold the Empress's hand in front of many monks in the world. Is he tired of living? They were shocked and countless eyes looked at the scene in astonishment. But they soon discovered that the Empress did not get angry at Nai Chen's words and frivolous behavior. Instead, she nodded with a little joy, and even her beautiful face seemed to blush slightly, and her body could not help but move closer to Nai Chen. Her slightly delicate behavior, even though it still carried a bit of familiar coldness, really gave off a feeling of a girl in love. Everyone was stunned and stood there. At this moment, everyone was dumbfounded. You are listening to Novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. Shock, the love letter was sent to the Empress by mistake. Author, Mozuzi. Chapter 427. The Empress's slightly red cheeks and the ambiguous atmosphere between the two made many cultivators dumbfounded. When the Empress announced her relationship, they still had a glimmer of hope in their hearts, thinking that there would be a turnaround. But the scene at this moment was completely different from what they imagined. The Empress was not angry at all because of Nai Chen's frivolous behavior. More importantly, the slightly red, drooping cheeks clearly had a trace of barely detectable shyness. This even looked a little soft and cute. Compared with the Empress, who was usually aloof and arrogant, and even seemed to be able to treat all living beings as grass and would never show any emotion, she was simply not the same person. Is this really still the Empress? The scene in front of them almost clearly told everyone that it was the Empress. However, the Empress's lovely expression only appeared when facing Nai Chen. Chu Qingyu's appearance and expression at this moment far exceeded the cognition of all the cultivators present. But they could still clearly see that the situation seemed to be far more than that. Nai Chen, who had already expected that the Empress would be shy when she said those words, could not help but smile slightly and leaned close to Chu Qingyu's ear. I didn't expect that my wife would actually announce it today, but in addition to the announcement, did you miss something? Missed, what? Chu Qingyu's voice was a little low, and she gently raised her head, with a faint blush on her cheeks. Of course, say something about our love, so that they will completely believe it. For example, wearing a bikini to play volleyball on the holy seashore, such as my wife. You misunderstood that the female disciple was eating chicken in my room and got jealous, or my wife, you always snatched the quilt from my body when you slept at night. Nai Chen smiled and told the story beside the delicate ear. But after hearing these words, Chu Qingyu's heart beat faster, her face flushed. No, this is absolutely not possible. Although I finally mustered up the courage to announce the relationship, how can I say these shameful things? Ahem, but these things are done by you, the Empress, and they are not just what you said on the surface, there are many more excessive things, such as... No, 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 don't say it for now, I know, I will definitely consider it in the future. But now, everything must be done step by step, such a shameful thing, give me some time first. After being fooled by Nai Chen, Chu Qingyu couldn't help but blame herself for not saying more. But thinking about it, the shame that could not be broken made her have to postpone the matter. Otherwise, if all these things are said together, I will not have the face to see people when I wake up tomorrow morning. Haha, it doesn't matter, let's talk about it later. Anyway, there's still plenty of time. Maybe if we go out on a few more dates recently, we'll have more things to talk about. Date. Ah, I know, but let's talk about it after the meeting, otherwise. No problem, let's talk about it after the next date. There was silence all around. At this moment, the eyes of many cultivators present revealed a look that was far more empty than before. Because, just now, everyone saw Nai Chen and the Empress whispering to each other. Not only that, they also heard the conversation between the two clearly. Although Nai Chen and the Empress were whispering near their ears, it seemed that the sound was very low. But in fact, the cultivators present were all highly cultivated and their hearing was far better than that of ordinary people. In addition, the two seemed to have no intention of using spiritual energy to hide their voices just now, so anyone could hear this extremely ambiguous conversation clearly. Dating, snatching blankets while sleeping, and the Empress being jealous, all of these things are earth-shattering. So, it's not just the Empress being in love, these two people are clearly here to abuse the dog. Oh no, just now. At this moment, Chu Qingyu, who came to her senses, realized that she had forgotten to cover her voice just now, and the conversation between her and Nai Chen was all heard. Recalling the content of the conversation just now, Chu Qingyu suddenly felt so ashamed that she wanted to find a crack in the ground to crawl into. Before this, who could have thought that she might say such a thing? The Emperor has something else to do, so this meeting will end here first, and I will leave first. I have no idea how to explain what she said just now. Chu Qingyu, who is confused and embarrassed, has completely given up explaining. After she finished speaking, a burst of cold air swept around. The jade feet stepped lightly on the ground, and the graceful figure immediately flew up with the wind, wanting to fly away from here and return to the palace. But Chu Qingyu had just flown to mid-air when Nai Chen stepped into the air and appeared beside her. How did you catch up? Chu Qingyu's voice could not help but become a little shy. It suddenly occurred to me that my wife, you seem to have had a cold uterus these 2 days. You should take care of your body during this period, and it's best not to have too much mood swings. So, I will go back to the palace with you and make you a bowl of hot porridge to warm you up. Otherwise, you don't like to drink brown sugar water, and you will ruin your body alone. Nai Chen answered softly. This sentence instantly shocked Chu Qingyu. Nai Chen not only remembered his time well, but also cared about it in detail. At this moment, Even though she knew that she was in front of the world's sex, Chu Qingyu still couldn't help but feel a little palpitation in her heart when she heard such embarrassing words. Finally, she nodded gently. Humph, it's worth it for this emperor to say it in front of the whole world. It seems that you still care about a lot of things. Chu Qingyu snorted lightly, but there was a sweet smile on the corner of her mouth. Wife, you are arrogant again. Nai Chen couldn't help but smile. Who is arrogant? How is it possible? This emperor said that I have nothing to do with this word. Then think about the scene just now, wife. This. Omitted. Finally, Chu Qingyu, who had no idea how to quibble, stuck out her tongue at Nai Chen. The pink little tongue was particularly cute, and the cold face looked a bit playful. The two figures walked away together, and under the gazes of countless people, it was clear that the two people's hands were gently held together. The scene was very sweet. Shock, the love letter was sent to the Empress by mistake. Author, MaleProtagonist. Chapter 428. This is simply too much. Not only is it too much, it is basically setting up a great system to abuse all the single dogs in the world. Too cruel, too cruel. I can be abused by anyone, but I never thought that one day I would be abused by the Empress. Looking at the two figures gradually going away in the sky, many cultivators present looked at each other, wanting to cry but not having tears. This can be called a super high dog abuse technique, which is no longer just a problem of abusing single dogs. Under this tyrannical killing power, even many cultivators with couples felt as if they had been greatly devastated. Looking at the backs of the Empress and Nai Chen walking hand in hand and walking away with deep affection, the huge field outside the Tianyun Palace was already filled with wailing. Looking at the embarrassing scene in front of him, Elder Wang hesitated again, and finally stood up. Ahem, thank you all for coming to attend the meeting in Tianyun Hall. But now that the Empress has returned to her bedroom and the meeting is over, please leave first and return to your respective sections. Elder Wang's words also put an end to the meeting. The cultivators from all directions were obviously a little difficult to accept and were not willing to leave so easily. But after thinking about it, with Nai Chen's terrifying strength now, even if he wanted to fight and save the Empress from the fire and water of love, there was no way. They could only return to the sect first and make long-term plans. But thinking back to the ambiguity between the two just now, they suddenly felt a little desperate. Even if they returned to the sect and the sects all over the world jointly advised the Empress not to be blinded by love, it would probably not have any effect at all. These sect masters and elders from all over the world had to drag their dejected bodies back to the sect. Many cultivators left one after another, and the quiet atmosphere was even more depressing. When the leaders of the various sects returned to the sect, they soon caused a stir. The elders and disciples in the sect all came forward with great interest. Sect Master, what exactly did the Empress talk about today? Well, the first thing the Empress talked about was the specific details of the events in the Imperial Mausoleum and the underworld. Oh, what about the second thing? I remember that the Empress seemed to have announced this second thing a long time ago. Some experts even speculated that once this matter was told, it would be enough to cause an uproar in the world. However, many people were obviously not interested in the matter of the Imperial Mausoleum. This, are you sure you want to hear it? Of course. Okay, well, if that's the case, don't blame me. In fact, the second thing the Empress said was that she was in love, and the object of her love was Nai Chen from Tianyun Palace. Soon, when these monks who returned to the sect told this matter, the major sects scattered across the Lanchuan continent, countless disciples and monks, all seemed to be strongly shocked. In addition to the desolate and wailing voice in the heart, there is also a sentence that coincides with each other. I can't accept it. Damn it, I want to fight Nai Chen desperately. I absolutely don't believe that the Empress will fall in love with him. That's right, No matter what the real situation is, as long as we attack him in groups and beat him up, the rumors will be self-defeating. Well, but at the Tianyun Palace conference, I also learned another news. Nichien's current strength has been promoted to the realm of the great emperor. Damn it, why is heaven so unfair to me? Finally, the disciples from all sects who were deeply shocked and devastated could no longer hold back. He could not be beaten again and again, and he could not be scolded again and again. She is not as handsome as others, and more importantly, her girlfriend is not yet an empress. There is no comparison at all. The sky is still blue, but at this moment, the hearts of many monks in Lanchuan continent seem to be filled with a layer of gloom. The shock and uproar brought about by this news was indeed enough to cause shock in the world. After all, since Empress Qingyu became the emperor, the book The Theory of the Uselessness of Taoist Companions alone has gained countless believers. As for the followers who admire her, there are countless. Woo woo woo. For a while, the crying sounded from all directions of Lanchuan continent. The scene was very spectacular. Even compared with the turmoil that had erupted in the imperial mausoleum, it seemed that this day was a dark day for many cultivators in Lanchuan continent. The desolate feeling seemed to be enough to make snow fall in June. At this moment, in Tianyun Hall, feeling the stunned faces of the cultivators outside, crying miserably, Chu Qingyu couldn't help but burst out laughing. This emperor just announced the news of a love affair. Is it that serious? You say whether it is that serious. Nichian couldn't help but smile helplessly. If it were any other person who fell in love, even if it was a great emperor, it would probably not be able to stir up such a big wave. But the empress was different. In addition to being ranked second in the alluring book and being regarded as the goddess in the eyes of countless people, the empress's coldness and her previous remarks made almost everyone believe it. Anyone can fall in love, except the empress. So when the news was announced, it was like setting off a storm, and even countless cultivators in the entire Lanchuan continent were swept up in it. The degree of shock was even more shocking than the resurrection of the emperor's body in the imperial mausoleum. Ahem, okay, this news does seem to be more unbelievable than it appears on the surface. After thinking about it carefully, Chu Qingyu couldn't help but feel a little embarrassed. But, I finally announced this to the world today, it feels pretty good, right? She snorted arrogantly, with a slightly smug smile evident on her lips. Nichian nodded, it's indeed good, but it still lacks something. What's missing? Chu Qingyu was slightly confused. That's right, the show of affection isn't quite enough. You. Chu Qingyu was so angry that she laughed. You're not a heartless dog food machine, how come you know how to show affection? Although I'm not, my wife is you. This emperor. I just, didn't. This sentence is obviously becoming less and less confident. After punching Nichian on the chest twice in shame and anger, Chu Qingyu's eyes wandered, but her thoughts suddenly changed. Speaking of which, it seems that a show of affection is indeed necessary. Looking at Nichian seriously, Chu Qingyu recalled Mount Imei and the book on the uselessness of Taoist companions that even made her ashamed. If we want to get rid of the continued spread of the theory that Taoists are useless, we may need to take action against Mount Imei. Shock, the love letter was sent to the Empress by mistake. Author, Mozuzi. Chapter 429. Although this matter was finally announced to the world, as if a major event had been accomplished, Chu Qingyu couldn't help but let out a long sigh of relief. But thinking about it carefully, she quickly realized what kind of sensation this matter would cause to Lanchuan continent if it were announced. In addition to the various sects that will continue to spread like crazy, the most important ones are the believers of the theory of the uselessness of Taoists. Chu Qingyu felt a little headache when she thought of the Taoist couple being useless. What did I do wrong when I was young and in the second grade of middle school? Even if I was arrogant enough to challenge the way of heaven like other great emperors, Why did I have to write that book about the uselessness of Taoist companions? With a full sense of helplessness, Chu Qingyu had actually wanted to abolish and publish the theory of the uselessness of Taoist companions for a long time. But she never imagined that the book she wrote casually when she was young would spread at a terrifying speed. Even though I woke up a year ago and realized how bad I was when I wrote this book, I never discussed anything about the theory of the uselessness of Taoists again. But even so, a group of believers who regard Taoist complaints as the supreme scripture are still growing and growing, and even the speed is getting faster and faster. Over the years, whenever Chu Qingyu had no choice but to casually talk a few words about the futility of Taoist couples under the eager eyes of many women who believed in this book, it would not take long for it to be recorded. Not only will it be widely circulated and praised, it may even be recorded in quotations, causing a few pages to be added to Tao Lun Wu Yu Lun and a new batch of reprints to be printed. Therefore, in such a long time, the number of pages in The Theory of the Uselessness of Taoist Companions, which was originally written by myself and was only a few hundred pages at most, has doubled. Not only that, with the development, the number of men and women who believe in the theory of the uselessness of Taoist companions is increasing day by day. So far, in addition to the forces under the great emperors, if anyone mentions there are other powerful forces. I am afraid that many monks will mention the anti-Taoist alliance. After all, these loyal believers exist among various sections. They do not fall in love or find a Taoist partner. The idea of having the empress as their highest belief has long been deeply implanted in their hearts. Even Chu Qingyu tried to come forward many times to make people stop believing in the theory of the uselessness of Taoist companions and try to get rid of the relationship with this second book. But those words were all regarded as words of modesty. Not only did it not have any effect, but it attracted even more admiration and loyalty. It was the complete opposite. However, there is finally a way to end this dark history. Chu Qingyu couldn't help but clenched her fist. The ones who had the biggest impact on the announcement of his love just now were those believers in the theory of the uselessness of Taoist couples, but at the same time, now was also the best time to change. Didn't you just say that showing affection is not enough? How about going out with me to show affection again? Finally making up her mind, Chu Qingyu looked at Nai Chen faintly. Oh. Nai Chen was slightly surprised, but soon he showed a meaningful look. However, I don't believe that my wife will show affection every day. There must be some other reason for this. Well, actually. Unexpectedly, her thoughts were seen through immediately, and Chu Qingyu quickly averted her eyes in a panic. But she pursed her lips lightly, but she knew very well that she wanted to eliminate those dark histories. The first step is to face them head on. After hesitating for a long time, Chu Qingyu finally opened her red lips lightly, suppressed the boundless shame, and told the story of the second grade of secondary school that was simply unbearable to look back on. Okay, actually the thing is like this. Ha ha ha, the anti-Taoist alliance, there is such a thing in the world. For a long time, after listening to Chu Qingyu telling the whole story from beginning to end, Nai Chen couldn't help but laugh. Who would have thought that Leng Ao Wushuan, the pure empress secretly would be the best in each competition? Not only when she was a child, but also the dark history of the empress when she was in middle school, each one is more eye-opening than the last. Especially this unintentionally developed anti-Taoist alliance, which now has followers all over the world and is about to become a huge force, is simply shocking after hearing this. No wonder that when he first fell in love with the empress, Nai Chen could always feel quite unkind looks, even though the relationship was not public at all. It seems that there are still people secretly investigating themselves. Even though he already knew about the book on the uselessness of Taoist companions, Nai Chen never expected that the impact of this book would be so great. The empress has announced her love affair. When these sect leaders and elders who came to attend the conference returned to the door and told the matter, one can already imagine what kind of sensation would erupt. Fortunately, I have reached the realm of the great emperor. Otherwise, those female disciples who believe in the Empress's books would have tried their best to tear themselves apart. But no matter what the reason is, of course I can't let go of the opportunity to show affection that you brought to my door, wife. I agreed to this. Although what Chu Qingyu said just now was a bit sensational, Nai Chen agreed quite generously. After all, I have secretly dated the Empress several times so far. But I have never really revealed my identity and shown affection in public. What reason do you have to refuse such a good thing? Humph, I'm glad you agreed. Hearing the answer, Chu Qingyu snorted lightly, but she was obviously relieved, revealing a hint of secret joy. If Nai Chen didn't agree, she really didn't know how to face such a shameful past. Fortunately. Then wait and set off with this emperor. Also, now that it has been made public, if you want to do something excessive like kissing in public, this emperor will not really completely refuse. Lan Zhi gently tapped Nai Chen's chest. Chu Qingyu, who said such words openly, suddenly felt a little embarrassed and lowered her head slightly. But it is obvious that the implication of this is to allow Nai Chen to be free from restraint and boldly show his love. Let those who believe in the theory of the uselessness of Taoist companions realize that love is actually different from what they imagine. Don't worry, if it comes to showing off your affection, let alone anything else, who else in the entire Lanchuan continent can compete with me? Nai Chen was quite confident about this request. Maybe he couldn't make a promise directly about other things, but the issue of showing affection has ravaged the Saint of Flowers and Emperor Jinming, so who else can he be afraid of? But, my wife, where are you going to show your affection? Looking at the beautiful face, Nai Chen asked. Yimei Mountain, after all, that is the biggest birthplace of the theory of the uselessness of Taoist couples now. You are listening to Novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. Shock, the love letter was sent to the Empress by mistake. Author, MaleProtagonist. Chapter 430. Empress, where are you going? Having just dismissed many sects, the embarrassed elder Wang wiped the sweat from his forehead and finally breathed a sigh of relief. But at this moment, he suddenly saw the Empress who had just left the palace, and it seemed that Yufen was planning to fly away. When Elder Wang asked, his voice quickly attracted many disciples on the side. But soon, all the disciples saw another figure beside the Empress. Nai Chen flew to the Empress' side. The two behaved intimately and walked side by side quite skillfully. It was as if this intimate gesture was already familiar. I am going out on a date with Nai Chen next. Hearing Elder Wang's question, Chu Qingyu hesitated for a moment, but quickly answered. There was a bit of coldness in the voice of this answer, just like the coldness and arrogance when giving orders in the past. But what he said was like a thunderbolt to Elder Wang and the nearby disciples. They never expected that the Empress would reveal the date so openly. Even though they had heard the Empress announce her relationship with senior brother Nai, they felt, when they thought that the Empress would actually go out on a date. Totally unacceptable. Elder Wang was also a little stupid. Empress, are you sure you are not joking? Of course, you have no joke. When has this emperor ever lied? Chu Qingyu answered without hesitation, as if to confirm her thoughts. Under the gaze of many eyes, the jade hand holding Nai Chen seemed to be held a little tighter. It seemed that the moment they looked at each other, it was like an electric current surged through them. Chu Qingyu raised the corners of her mouth slightly, and walked hand in hand with Nai Chen in the eyes of everyone. Controlling the void is something that only the powerful emperor can do. But at this moment, the two of them stepped into the void at the same time and gradually disappeared into the sky. Such a scene is really a couple of gods and immortals that only the powerful emperor can form. Seeing these disciples who had been single for who knows how many years, my heart moved and I almost cried. How could they imagine that the Empress rarely left Tianyun Palace in the past? I will go on a date on an ordinary day, facing the ordinary sunshine. The cold imperial power that was still floating faintly in the air made people feel like they were crying without tears. These disciples who had been single for many years suddenly felt that it was necessary for them to fall in love. Otherwise, who can bear it if it happens like this every day? Stepping on the void, thousands of miles of mountains and rivers disappear in an instant. After a while, a mountain range appeared in front of Nai-Chen and Chu Qingyu. This is Mount Imei. Although Mount Imei is also extremely tall and towering, it is not as majestic as Tianyuan Palace. Instead, it feels more graceful and light. The spiritual energy floating in the air is somewhat clear, but at the same time it is as clear as gurgling water. This kind of spiritual energy is suitable for female disciples with relatively pure thoughts to practice. It is precisely because of this that Mount Imei is able to take root here and continue to grow, and all the disciples in the sect are women. Yu Xiren, the patriarch of Mount Imei, also attended the Tianyuan Palace meeting. And when she heard the empress announce her relationship, her face became more haggard than anyone else's. After he staggered back to the sect and told this fact with a trembling voice, the entire Mount Imei was completely in an uproar. The empress's love story indeed caused consternation in the world, but the ones who couldn't believe it the most were the countless disciples in Mount Imei. Because over the years, the belief they have continued to grow in and the classic book they regard as divine decree is the theory of the uselessness of Taoist companions. Not falling in love, not becoming a Taoist partner with anyone, and wholeheartedly following the Empress has become a belief they have always adhered to. But today, the Empress actually announced that she is in love. Impossible, I will never believe it. That is the Empress who wrote the theory of the uselessness of Taoist couples. How could the Empress be interested in love? To this day, I still clearly remember that there was once a strong man in the Holy Emperor realm who frivolously expressed his love to the Empress, only to have half of his life cut off by the Empress. How could such an Empress fall in love? I don't believe it either. I have followed the Empress and the wise sayings in the theory of the uselessness of Taoist companions all my life, and I will never believe such ignorant rumors. However, what happened just now was said by the leader himself. Not only that, many monks passing by had revealed that the Empress seemed to have unusual feelings for Nai-Chen. The intimate behavior between the two is beyond the comparison of ordinary lovers. But after a long silence, even the female disciples of Mount Imei didn't know how to explain clearly in the face of overwhelming evidence. It must be that Nai-Chen used some weird method to confuse the Empress, causing her to temporarily change her mind. As long as we defeat Nai-Chen, give him a good beating and let him get rid of his confusion about the Empress, won't we be able to solve it? At this moment, someone suddenly suggested. When these words were spoken, the eyes of the disciples around him suddenly lit up, as if they suddenly realized. That's right, even if the Empress appears to have a close relationship, maybe it's not from her true heart. As long as we defeat Nai-Chen, won't we be able to know the truth of the matter? Yes, beat Nai-Chen violently and rescue the Empress. This is what those of us who believe in the Empress should do. Beat Nai-Chen. He dared to seduce the Empress, I'll beat him up. As if they had finally found a way out, cheers suddenly broke out. But Nai-Chen has reached the realm of the great emperor, and his strength is second only to the Empress. But suddenly, a voice sounded. Instantly, the entire Mount Imei seemed to be silent. Master, senior sister, are you sure you are not joking? When they found out that the one who said this was the senior sister of the high status of the deacon, all the female disciples were dumbfounded. Of course, why would I joke? Where did you hear it from? I heard it from Master Fenwen who passed by, and there is absolutely no falsehood. All the disciples who were cheering and excited about finding a way out just now fell silent. After a period of silence, the disciples of Mount Imei looked at each other, tears in their eyes. So, there is really no way for the Empress to fall in love. Wow, I can't believe it. But it seems that I really don't know what to do. I can't accept it. Wow, Empress, how can the Empress fall in love and fall into the boundless sea of suffering? Bursts of crying echoed on Mount Ime. These once vigorous female disciples seemed to be shocked and seriously traumatized. Who said that love can't bring happiness? Do you have any misunderstandings about love? Just then, a voice came from a distance. Shock, the love letter was sent to the Empress by mistake. Author, MaleProtagonist. Chapter 431. Who is it? For a moment, the attention of all Mount Ime disciples present was attracted. Their eyes turned towards the source of the sound, but they found that there was no one else in front of them. There were only two figures sitting on a hillside in the distance. As if their consciousness was occasionally disturbed by some kind of interference, they were unable to identify the identities of the two figures behind them. It can be roughly felt that the woman's back is flawless and extremely beautiful, and the back of the man next to her is even more handsome, with extraordinary talent. Who can have such a temperament and influence our minds? All the disciples of Mount Ime showed a hint of astonishment at the same time. However, due to the interference of spiritual power, they were unable to see the true identities of the two figures. I had no choice but to slowly approach the distant hillside. The flowers and plants on Mount Ime bloom all year round, and the climate throughout the year is the most pleasant warm spring. There is a little frost and snow on the top of the mountain, but there are extremely bright flowers growing on the slopes. But the originally beautiful scene seemed to have a bit more charm against the backdrop of that absolutely beautiful and flawless figure. 3,000 green silk threads flutter gently in the wind, and the light blue phoenix skirt seemed to turn into a butterfly flying in the air. Be unrestrained and pursue freedom. Even though she didn't turn around, many disciples were deeply shocked by her beautiful back, and even their eyes were a little straightened. Although they are women, they can fully appreciate the beauty of such a scene that is not like the human world. But, were those words you just said? You said that being in love does not mean that you are unhappy. Do you think we have misunderstood the matter of love? At this moment, Deacon disciple John Kinyun's hostile voice broke the tranquility. That's right. After a long silence, the woman finally answered. Hearing these words, the other disciples also frowned and felt a little sullen. John Kinyun was obviously aroused, and she raised her eyebrows. Do you know what the road we follow in Mount Ime is? All along, the person we in Mount Ime have the most faith in is Empress Yu. The Empresses on the Uselessness of Taoist Companions is the program we follow and a classic that will always be engraved in our hearts. Therefore, all female disciples in Mount Ime are extremely resistant to love, and regard it as the most polluting dross in people's hearts. What do you mean by what you just said? However, the woman did not answer again. Instead, he slowly looked at the man beside him. Although they could not see the eyes of the two people clearly, at this moment, the disciples in Mount Ime felt that the air seemed to be full of affection. While everyone was watching, the man slowly took out a white lotus flower and inserted it into the 3,000 blue hairs. The contrast between the white snow lotus flowers and the long, ink-like hair is so beautiful that it is heart-warming. This move obviously made the woman's heart palpitate. Why are you putting this flower on my head? It's very simple. Of course it's because the hillside is full of flowers. If you bring this lotus, my wife, won't you also blend into the flowers? Integrating into the flowers? What does that have to do with me? Etc. Humph, do you mean that I don't have beautiful flowers? Of course not. I mean, there are all flowers here. I'm worried, my wife, that you are so beautiful that you will make all the flowers everywhere feel ashamed. That's why I asked you, wife, to bring this flower and feel sorry for the flowers and plants everywhere. The man couldn't help but smile. You. After hearing these words, the woman's figure couldn't help but tremble with hunger and a hint of shame. Damn. Glib tongue. Humph, don't think that's enough. You men are all philanderers, and even if you are glib and talkative now, can you continue to do so for 10 years, 100 years, or 1,000 years? Of course it can. If it is for you, my wife, let alone 1,000 years, it doesn't matter even if it is 10,000 years. After a long silence, the woman seemed obviously moved by the words that were obviously disgusting but sounded extremely sincere. But she still tried to fight back. 1,000 years? I don't believe it. I won't easily believe something that happened so long ago. What's more, how can you prove it? Proof? Of course it's simple. Regarding this question, the man smiled slightly as if he had expected it. Although 10,000 years sounds like a long time, as long as every year I come to this hillside, pick a flower and give it to my wife, and then say I love you again. Slowly passing by year, the seemingly distant 10,000 years is actually not that long away. Pick a flower here every year and say I love you. Hearing this sentence, the woman became somewhat silent. In this world, how can there be a more affectionate confession than these words? On the silent hillside, although the faces of the two people could not be clearly seen, the many Mount Ime disciples who were also stunned seemed to hear a slightly rapid and panicked heartbeat. Humph, it sounds easy to say, but a man's mouth is such a liar. I don't believe you would really do this. The woman's faint voice came out, but her thoughts were obviously shaken. Honey, are you sure? Sure. Haha, if that's the case, then I'll prove it with actions. The man smiled and suddenly plucked a very beautiful flower beside him. He slowly placed the flower on the palm of the woman's hand, and with a smile on his face, he leaned close to the woman's ear. His voice was tender, without any other extra words, just the most pure and simple 3 words. Wife, I love you. When this sentence was said, not only all the disciples of Mount Ime were stunned. They also clearly saw that a hint of light red appeared on the delicate little ears of the woman. A strand of hair fell down, and she lightly lifted it in panic, revealing a beautiful side face with a clear rosy glow. The lethality of the sentence was too great, and even these disciples felt a tremor in their hearts just now. They hurriedly shook their heads, trying to get rid of the absurd thoughts that had just sprouted because of that sentence. Wait, the heartless flower is actually blooming. But at this moment, suddenly a disciple pointed to a green lawn behind the hillside in astonishment. In the lawn, fiery red flowers slowly grew. Each flower had 7 bright red stamens, like a blooming flower. These flowers, which had been planted on Mount Ime for hundreds of years and had never bloomed, actually bloomed together at this moment.